Good evening, and thank you for watching. My name is Arren Kimbel-Sannit, and I'll be the moderator for this evening's debate. The Citizens Clean Elections Commission is the sponsor for this event. As the state's voter education agency, Clean Elections hosts debates, so voters have the opportunity to hear directly from the candidates, ask questions on the issues that matter most to them, and vote informed. Candidates that have a contested primary election have been invited to participate in the debate. Candidates that have opted into the Clean Elections funding program are required to participate, while traditional candidates are invited and encouraged to attend. The questions that will be asked this evening are coming directly from voters. Leading up to the debates, Clean Elections conducted outreach to voters across the state, soliciting questions for these candidates. Voters that are watching this debate live, you can submit a question at any time by emailing debates@kc-a.com, texting at 928-362-1062, or placing a phone call at 480-937-1297. And if your question is for a specific candidate, please specify the same if the question is for all candidates. We do screen those questions for clarity to eliminate duplications, speeches, or personal attacks. This debate is scheduled for about an hour and a half, so we may not get to all audience questions, but we will do our best. And to the candidates, you will have 1 minute for opening and closing statements and 1 to 2 minutes for your response to each voter question. We encourage an open exchange of dialogue between the candidates. If you feel the need to respond to another candidate's comments, you may do so, but I may limit responses for time management purposes. And we also remind the candidates and the audience that this is a respectful, courteous, and professional environment. Our goal tonight is to connect candidates and voters so our electorate may be informed. Now, tonight's debate has candidates running for the House of Representatives in the Democratic and Republican parties in LD29. Voters, it's important to remember that in the primary election, candidates are competing for their party's nomination to appear on the general election ballot. This means that Richard Andrade, Castro, Cesar Chavez are vying for the 2 Democratic nominations, but Bill Bragg, Alysia, McMillan, and Helen, Fokszanskyj-Conti are vying for the 2 Republican nominations. And I would also encourage the candidates to keep that in mind as well as you respond to these questions. At this point, you are competing against your fellow party members in the primary election, though, of course, I will not stop you if you want to respond across the aisle as well. Now, the order in which candidates speak has been determined by the alphabetical order by last name for opening comments, and we'll progress from that starting point. Now, Mr. Andrade, I will ask you to begin with your opening remarks.
Yes, good evening, everyone. And my name is Richard Andrade, State Representative, representing Legislative District 29. I am seeking my 4th term in office. Because why? Because as Democrats, we're constantly under attack by the majority. And it is time, because Arizona has said, it is time for a change here in our state. It is time for a different type of governing. And being in the state capitol and seeing the attacks upon everything from public education to rights of our LGBTQ community here recently with this past session, the attacks keep going on. And it is time that we're going to stop that, because we are poised to gain control of the state legislature in the House of Representatives, and having the experience to be able to govern and run committees and be able to govern and show Arizona that Democrats can govern, and we will govern, keeping our priorities as people, not private interests, not special interests, but people are our #1 objective to represent when it comes to public education, when it comes to jobs, when it comes to our communities. So that's why I'm here debating this, because I look forward to these debates. It shows the voters how we stand on certain issues and what matters to us, because you'll see a difference between each candidate, but more importantly, you're going to see who really represents them at the House of Representatives for LD29. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. And I'm going to do this party by party for the sake of consistency. So we'll next go to Mr. Teddy Castro.
Hi, my name is Teddy Castro. I'm a real estate broker here in Arizona. I was born and raised in Maryville. I've always lived in the West Valley. I have went to Maryville High School. I'm all about what my community has been through in the last, 47 years that I've been on this planet. So I know exactly what everybody goes through. I've struggled just as much as everybody else has. I've become successful. I always help people around me grow. And I look at my community and I want them to grow as a whole because I believe LD29 is the gem of the West Valley. I believe that we can have higher paying jobs, more jobs. We can have affordable housing opportunities. We can have increased funding for education so that our kids can grow to be substantial, successful individuals. So for me, being a part of this panel, being a part of this debate, and going across the aisle, understanding both sides of the fence and knowing what I stand for, I know I can make a difference. I know I can be the difference. As things that are developing now within the economy and the community today, there's a lot of things that if you've been through these strides is what's going to make a difference of how we're going to get out of what's happening today with COVID. So for me, I know there's a big success out there for all of us. You just got to give me a shot. I'm here to be a candidate for you. I'm here to make a difference in LD29. And I appreciate being on this panel. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Representative Chavez.
Arren, thank you very much. Cesar Chavez, State Representative, Legislative District 29. First and foremost, I really want to thank our healthcare workers, our first responders, grocery workers, our National Guard, our workforce in the state of Arizona, especially those that have been working around the clock during this pandemic. But I also want to thank the resiliency and the preservance of LD29 families who are currently going through this horrific crisis that we're facing in the state of Arizona. My heart really goes out to them. This is my second term in office. In these last 2 years, we've done so much progress. It's been really an honor to represent Legislative District 29, the district that I grew up in, growing up in Maryville, going to public education within the Maryville community, and today representing our community.
Great. Thank you so much. And now for the Republican candidates in LD29, beginning with Billy Bragg.
Hello, everyone. My name is Billy Bragg. I'm originally from Arkansas, Texarkana, Arkansas. I was transferred here to Luke Air Force Base in 1971, and I've been here ever since. I've been in the military for 21 years, and my background into the politics started when I was 15 years old with Winthrop Rockefeller, who became governor of Arkansas, a Republican governor in Arkansas that beat Oral Forbes, a white supremacist. And Winthrop Rockefeller told me what it meant for me to vote and what it means to me, toward my vote goes toward to help out. And I understand what it means for the people to be free. It's all about the Constitution. And everything that I work for is about the Constitution. I am not a slave to any party, but I'm a servant to everyone. Like I served the military for 21 years, I'm here to also serve you. Just as there's people out there serving on this COVID-19, all the first responders and everyone, I also know what they're going through, and I really appreciate what they're going through. But I'm going to let you know about the other people that you don't see, the ones that works in the stores, your grocery handlers, people like that. They are also your first contact people, and they do it also to help you out and help us out. I've seen a lot of things that happen in this district that really need a change. I've seen what the people in education are doing. I talk to teachers that's telling me that they can't talk to the administration because they don't have enough tenure. I understand what they're going through. I see the community, things that happen in the community, and I asked them about, have you contacted your legislature? They said, I can't get hold to them. They don't return my call. And all those things, I said, well, have you ever had someone come to your door like me? I'm running for this state representative in this District 29, have anyone come to your door and talk to you about the issues? She said, no, they don't have any confidence or faith in the representatives in this district at this moment because of they'll get a pretty card in the mail say, re-elect me, but the card can't talk back. You need people to come out there and talk to you. And I'm one of those guys, I knocked on over 500 doors and told them who I was running for, what I was running for. And that was Republicans, Democrats, and independents, because I am the person to serve the people, not a political party, but I'm here for a person. I serve the people and what their needs are.
Thank you so much. And now, Ms. McMillan.
Hi there, my name is Alysia McMillan. I'm running to be the state representative of District 29. I stand for two things, God first and upholding our constitutional rights second. As a representative of the district, what's most important to me would be bringing power to the people through education as well as their participation. I truly feel that what defines a community or a nation as a whole is its people and not its politics. So I want to bring that power back to the people, let the people know that I am one of them and that I'm not something that they can necessarily look to for all the answers, because in them is where I'm going to find the answers. So like I said, my name is Alysia McMillan. I'm running as a Republican, but I identify with being an American first and foremost, and I'd love to represent you. Thank you, and please check out my social medias at Aries up top. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm now realizing that I did not actually go out of order. So last, certainly not least, Miss Fokszanskyj-Conti. I'm so sorry. Please proceed.
Hi, everybody. I'd like to thank the sponsors for having a chance to speak in front of everyone. I want to, I don't know where to start. Okay, I want to tell you about how I happened to come to the United States. My parents were in camps in Germany during the war. And after the war, they ended up in camps fleeing from communist countries. Then after the war, we all came to America. I started out in Ohio, I grew up there, and then I went to Arizona in '79. So I ended up in Glendale. I lived in Glendale for over 30 years. I'm invested in Glendale. Been a precinct committeeman for 30 years. On and off, I've been your state committeeman. So I have been serving Glendale LD29 for some time. I'm just upping it a little bit. I want to go to the state representatives, the House. And I'm not a single issue person at all. I'm all issues. I'm a Christian conservative businesswoman in the district. I've had 2 businesses. I'm invested here. I would like to be the representative for the people because I feel I am one of you. You know, I've lived through all the lines changing and watching the farmers develop and sell their land, libraries popping up, schools growing here and there. I feel that I'm one of the people. I'm not a politician here or anything like that. So I would be open to all issues. I'm not a single issue person at all. I'd be open to all issues related to LD29. I would be glad to sit as a freshman in any seat, any commission or committee they want to put me on, and be very excited to work for them and be a voice for the people in the district. And I feel I know them because I'm one of them. I live here, I'm invested, and I'd like to ask for your vote. Helen Fokszanskyj-Conti, vote for her. Helen with the longest name. Last name, you won't remember it, but remember Helen, okay?
Thank you so much, and thank you for the name pronunciation too. I think that might be helpful for me. We will now begin with the questions from the voters, and I would encourage you guys to keep in mind those time constraints that I mentioned at the top, 1 to 2 minutes for each question. We do have many, many candidates here today, so we're going to try to be as efficient as is possible. So I will begin with a question addressed to all 6 of you. We will try to go in a similar order. This is sort of the news of the day. Today, Arizona Governor Doug Ducey accelerated his plan to reopen the state, to lift the stay-at-home order, laying out a path for barbershops, salons, and some restaurants to get back to work in the coming days, as early as the end of the week. Even as the case count in Arizona ticks upwards and the federal government estimates that deaths from COVID-19 could reach as many as 240,000 by the end of the year. Mr. Andrade, was this the proper course of action?
Well, as you may well know and everything, because the number of deaths and the cases keep going up and everything, I think we're moving too fast, too soon and everything. And one thing I'm really concerned about is employee safety. Being a union person who has been part of the union for the last 26 years, one of our priorities is safety. So opening up basically the economy without having guarantees to protect workers is what's most concerning to me, especially our essential workers and other workers that are exposed to the public and everything. Because just the other day I was at Safeway and very few of the customers were wearing masks, which is very concerning and everything, because at the end of the day, it is about public safety. It's public safety for the employees. It's public safety for others that are out there in the community as well. So I'm very concerned about that aspect, and I'm hoping, because that these cases do come down, the infections do come down and everything, but we've been lucky because of the measures that have been taken, put in place to prevent the further infections from occurring. So hopefully we don't approach it too fast, because that is the number one thing that all of us should be concerned. This is a virus which has no vaccine. So we need to take extra precautions when it comes to dealing in public.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Chavez, I want to kick this to you, because I know that you, perhaps are one of the more financially moderate members of the Democratic Party. I saw you tweeting in support of the governor's actions and, kind of being grateful that some businesses are beginning to reopen or that we're considering those options. What did you think about what Governor Ducey did today, and how would you respond to Representative Andrade's concerns?
Well, Arren, we've learned so much about COVID-19 in this last month since we first ordered the executive order and since we recessed at the state legislature. And as of today, we have approximately 8,919 confirmed cases and over 300 deaths. So families that are going through COVID-19 obviously would not be remiss if we as government officials did not take into consideration the effects that this pandemic has caused. Now, when we're talking about the economy and where Arizona was on the track of being one of the greatest states to have the strongest economy in the nation, that really concerns me when we've had to put everything to a halt. Businesses left and right in District 29 have asked to reopen. And I believe that by now, in what we have learned, and obviously always making decisions based off of science and facts, I think that we're certainly in a great place to extend it to May 15th, during which time creating indications that these businesses must follow. Because the last thing that we don't want to see is individuals who have dreamt of owning their own business, opening up their own business and losing it all. That would be very irresponsible of ourselves as government officials. But more so, the important piece here is to ensure that every individual that has contact with other people, whether it's the worker, whether it's the client, whoever it may be, that they are ensured that we are taking the precautions necessary to ensure their safety and their health.
And I'll just pin you down to an answer here. Was Governor right to accelerate his timeline for reopening the state as he did this morning?
As I had mentioned previously, I applauded the governor for extending the executive order, because that really provides us with more time to put indications necessary. But more so, or most importantly, I would say, to give a pathway to business owners and give them an actual time on when they can open, as long as they adhere to CDC guidelines and to the guidelines set by the Arizona Department of Health.
Great. And to round up the Democratic field, Mr. Castro, what are your thoughts on
Well, as a real estate broker and a business owner myself, I've been through 9/11. I've been through the market crash. I've seen what these recent months have done to our economy. We are usually the first line of what the question comes is because what people are always concerned about is my home. And when they're like, I'm losing hours, I'm going to work furlough, I'm losing my job, my business is closed. These are all the professionals and workers that are out there that I've talked to. I feel that when Ducey implemented what he did was fabulous. I also looked at when he extended it was great, but I also think it's time for us to start attritioning to get back to business in a very fashionable way that follows the CDC guidelines, that we're able to actually get our families back to work, our families back in business, because the most people that are getting hit the most is the really mom and pop shops, the small businesses on the corner, down the street. Those are the ones that are really taking the hit, and those are the ones that we rely on to help us to be as a community. And once the community breaks down, once you feel like your house is insecure, whether you go into a forbearance loan, whether you actually don't make your mortgage payment, we had a lot of people fall out from buying homes because of what the economy was going through. People in the middle of actually just about to close couldn't close on their home that they had saved so much money. Now the money they saved, they're using it to survive. These are things that we have to really consider. And I think that the speed that we've done it and how safely we have been in our communities as a whole, not every store is perfect. Not every business owner is perfect. Not every person is perfect. But at the end of the day, what it's going to matter is that we have to keep our economy going. We have to keep pushing, whether it might be full speed in the next 3-4 months. But I think at the end of the day, right now, we have to start something. So that's where I stand at this point.
And Arren, this is Richard Andrade. I'd like to comment.
Sure.
And one thing, once again, if this virus does get out of control and everything, hopefully the governor will listen to us and say, okay, see, we proceeded too fast and too quickly and everything. So hopefully as fast as we were able to open it up, that we're able to come back and say, okay, we need to close down again, prevent further deaths and further spread of the infection and everything. Because yes, when it does come to the economy, I do work for the railroad and we're seeing the impact of what's going on with the industry. And the last thing we want to see is our economy slow down. But then again, what good is to have an economy come back open just to shut it down all over again? So that's concerning. And I'm hoping that once again, that they listen to us as legislators saying, okay, it's time to shut it back down because once again, we don't want to see the spikes occur.
Okay. And unless there's any other comments, I'll move on to the Republican side of the field, beginning with Mr. Bragg. How would you evaluate Governor Ducey's handling of this virus? Was he right to extend his stay-at-home order to May 15th? And now is he doing the right thing by dialing that back a little bit?
No, I don't think he was right for extending it to May 15th. Reason why every day counts for these little small businesses. Every day counts for the people who need to go to the businesses. All these people like the hotels and your small businesses, the stores, getting your hair cut, things like that. People are losing their jobs and they need to open it up. People are smart. They understand what they need to do. The guidelines was put down for masks, the gloves, and whatever you need to do your job. And the people done that. And I look at what I do is I looked at how many people is in the emergency room for this COVID-19 virus. How many? We found out that a lot of nurses are being laid off because of no one in the emergency, no one in ICU because of this virus. I noticed that the government is going by these models that they move every day. You move the model because you estimate it's going to be over so many thousands of people coming in for this deal, but haven't happened. We found out that this virus hit the elder people, anybody over from 50 below, children, not hardly. You do an estimate on everyone that has this virus and that died from this virus, it was also an underlying illness that they had. No one died from the virus. We also found out that many states and cities, what they've been doing when people die, they say it was virus related. It wasn't from the virus, it's virus related. It's also the way you use the language. If you're afraid to open up the business now, we are Americans. We are free. Let us do what we need to do. If you keep holding off on this virus, like you're saying, let's support our leaders. Let's do this. People are getting frustrated. It's people are going to protest everywhere in the United States, everywhere. And it's because of mistakes made by the government. They are also violating our bills of rights by not letting people go to church. You can't infringe on that. You can't, and that's what's been going on right now. And the problem is, go and do your research on the hospitals, on how many people are getting affected by this virus, who need to be kept who need to be kept close watch of this virus, like the elderly and ones with underlying illness, and protect them. One size don't fit all. You have to go by and fix the ones where we need to protect the ones who need to be protected, and let the people carry on their business. They know how to social distance and what they need to do to protect the people in their businesses. We're doing it now with Walmart and all your other stores, Costco. We're doing it there. They're showing you which way to go, how to go.
All right, and I'll interrupt you so we can move on. Now, Ms. Fokszanskyj-Conti, how would you agree with what Mr. Bragg is saying? You seem to think that maybe this is not as serious as some would suggest, pointing to the amount of people who have died who have had underlying conditions. I have all these stay-at-home orders and things of that nature. Have they gone too far? Is it time to reopen?
There's that talk that it's all blown out of proportion. But I agree with Governor Ducey. I think he's doing the right thing because we have to go at it slowly, but we do need to open up the economy. So he's opening it up a little bit on the 15th. We need to study. I know the workers need to go to work because some people are employees. They go on a pay-to-pay weekly paycheck and they're counting on it. And yet there's the mom and pop business people that want to keep their business open. That's their whole life and they need to keep it open. Once you stop, it's hard to kickstart them again. I know because I've done that. But yet we want to have people safe. So he is opening up a little step at a time. I think he's doing it right. At the same time, we have to take responsibility on our own. Yes, you can go out, but you have to wear a mask. You have to social distance, wash your hands. We have to take responsibility and go out. I don't think we should be going into martial law, but I do think we can open up a step at a time, as the disease flattens out. We can open up more and more that way. In the meantime, they're testing for titers to see because there are people that have had the disease and they're carriers. They don't feel sick and they're out walking around and they're carriers. And at the same time, there's people that had it. They have antibodies. Now we need to get a hold of those antibodies and see can we make a serum for it to fight it? Will those antibodies help fight the disease for other people? So there's the TGen, and we have laboratories here that are testing in that, and I think that's good too. So we need both of that, but each individual person has to take their responsibility when they go outside if they want to go outside. And
I'll cut you off here just so we can stay within the time limits, but I think you got your point across. Ms. McMillan, how would you rate the governor's handling of this? I know we've been talking a lot about whether or not he should have extended the stay-at-home order to May 15th. But let's go back a little bit. Should we have had a stay-at-home order at all, in your estimation? Ms. McMillan, you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Great. Did you hear my question?
I did. I'm having a little bit of technical difficulty, so it kind of cut in and out. So could you please repeat?
Of course, yeah. We've been talking a fair amount about whether or not Governor Ducey should have extended the stay-at-home order until May 15th, but I want to go back a little bit. Do you think that we should have had a stay-at-home order in the state of Arizona to begin with, or do you think the governor was going too far even then?
I feel that if we were going to have a stay-at-home order, that we should have done it to the fullest. Places like jails, prisons, and nursing homes, where the people who are in those facilities do not leave. We had employees going to those places and then leaving, returning to the general public, and then going back. And unfortunately, some people in the nursing homes were affected. People incarcerated have been affected. So if we were going to do a stay-at-home order, I would have encouraged that we fully implemented a true stay-at-home order. But overall, I do not support the stay-at-home order.
And for what reasons? I mean, it sounds like you would have liked for there to be some kind of actually stricter quarantines than what we have in place currently, what you just explained. But why should we have not had one at all?
Because I believe that it's up to the American people to decide what is best for them. We should be provided with all the information and all the knowledge exactly what the virus is, how it affects people, and that should be our personal responsibility to decide how it is that we're going to continue through life.
Any further comments on this question? Great. All right, we will
But
move
I
on.
have one comment real quick. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, Mr. Castro, please proceed.
Yes. So in other states, because all of us have probably traveled to other states that have a high density population in a small area. Here in Arizona, I feel like that we actually live in somewhat a social distance environment. I mean, you're not really walking through a hallway where 10 people live in the same building. We go outside we go to and from work. We say hi to our neighbors from a distance. A lot of times where we are socially interactive, it usually is an entertainment value, shopping, or restaurants, which obviously those are the main factors that affected our economy. So I look at it that if we can actually, as an Arizona, as a state, you look at it us specific on how we operate as a whole, we have actually social distance for a long time, which is why our numbers, which unfortunately as high as they are, aren't as high as other states that have higher dense populations in smaller areas. So this is why I feel that the moves that we were making at this point, because when it started, you had to cut it. You had to do something in order to see what we're dealing with, because you can't move forward with something that you don't know what's ahead of you. And the moves that he did was what it took. And now understanding what Arizona and how we operate as a community, I think has definitely put in place factors that make a difference that will help us get back on track.
I'd like to say something also.
Please.
Yes, I looked at so far. I watched what Sweden's done. Sweden have not locked down anything. Their businesses are going on. They do wear masks, but they don't have a high rate of of victims suffering from this virus. And the businesses are open and everything's going on. We need to look at see what's going on with them. Also, Taiwan. If you look at Taiwan, they was a #1 country that led the way on find out who had this virus and quarantine them right away. And due to the infighting in Washington, D.C. between the Democrats and President Trump, he didn't have a chance to find out what was going on until January. And when he blocked everything in January, everybody called him a xenophobe. They called him racist for doing what he had to do. And everybody, now they're going back on what they said about him. Every state, and I noticed that the states that have the most problems are the states that are blue, that are ran by Democrats. If you notice that, but the states that are ran by Republicans, they have less problems. That means let's look at those states to see what's going on and what they're doing to control this virus. Because I noticed Democrats, they look for government to do everything instead of looking at the people. You're supposed to represent the people, not the government.
Arren, if I could make one last comment here. This is the second time that I hear today from a member of the Republican Party reference Sweden. I hope they understand that Sweden has socialized medicines, something that the Republican Party has been completely against, and one of the best healthcare systems in the world. If we want to be like Sweden, I would hope that next time we go back into session, we're appropriating more dollars into our healthcare system. Now, if there's any reason why numbers are declining on COVID-19. It is because people have stayed at home. It is because they have been practicing social distances. Nobody is infringing on anybody's constitutional rights. If anything, the government's role is to protect our citizens. And I think that we've done a great job here in the state of Arizona, and we've done it in a nonpartisan way, not Republican, not Democratic, but for the people.
Yes, but Sweden, if you look at Sweden and look at their population, I believe they'll be about the size of New Jersey. And look at and their customs and courtesies, what they have is different than the United States. You look at their governmental, the way they set up the government is different than the United States. We have people coming here because of the way our government system works. That's it.
I'll remind us that we are none of us are running for office in another country, nor are we running for federal office. So let's try to keep things to the point.
Thank you, Arren.
And, sorry, Representative Andrade, did you say something?
Yes, I said thank you for pointing that out. This is the United States, and we're talking about Arizona issues, not what's going on in Sweden.
Right. I appreciate that as well. And I'm glad that you guys are conversing. I'll remind you that you are free to talk over one another so long as I can decide who's talking first. You don't have to wait for me to ask a question, certainly. But we will move on to the next question. When we do reopen the economy, which eventually will happen by whether it's on May 15th or whether it's earlier or later than that, there will be some businesses that feel that maybe it's still not safe for them to open. Some workers who will be forced off unemployment, but may not be able to get the same hours or the same pay or the same, obviously, safe work environment that they could get before. How do you plan on supporting some of those people? Because presumably not everyone will want to open at full capacity at the same time, or perhaps they won't be able to open at full capacity at the same time. But they may lose certain benefits that are nonetheless associated with the stay-at-home order, with the declaration of emergency. How do we kind of navigate that situation? And I'll begin again with Mr. Andrade.
Yes, thank you, Arren. Well, first of all, we got to recognize that from the very beginning, people are struggling anyway. I mean, when you look at especially LD29, when it comes to jobs and everything, our constituents have already been going through this sort of, not the COVID-19 pandemic, but they're the ones that are working these jobs where they have low hours, where they don't have livable wages, don't have affordable health care, and some kind of pension system, paid vacations and all that. So the people in this district are already living under those kind of conditions and everything. And now we're talking about bringing back the economy and what are we going to do for workers that want to stay home because they're afraid. Well, once again, we have to ensure that their safety practices, making sure social distancing, that employers are providing PPE, making sure that at the end of the day, that somebody's going to be able to go to work and go home at the end of the day without carrying that virus home. So how do we tackle all this and say, hey, how can we ensure the safety not only of the family members and the person that's working? Well, if they choose they need to stay home because the employer's not doing what they need to do to keep them safe, then we need to recognize that and say until a business implements all the CDC guidelines, you're going to have to, we're going to have to say, hey, no, don't put them at risk. Stay home till the business complies with the CDC guidelines.
Mr. Castro, you want to tackle this?
I'm sorry, was that me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I feel that knowing a lot of business owners, knowing that I have a lot of family in LD29, and I've talked to them about their situation, their specific concerns, and their concerns are all across the board. I have people who will not go out anymore, total quarantine just about, and I have people that are looking at, I need to feed my family. I need to make sure I can keep my home. I need to make sure that, my kid's going to go to college, or, everybody's missed out on a lot of opportunities, whether it's, their high school or high school graduation or eighth grade promotion. There's a lot of things that happen that affect people personally, and they look at it differently. But I look at that LD29 has had a lot of struggles. As a legislator, it's our job to bring those struggles to the forefront and bring the businesses to the district so that we can be a powerhouse for the West Valley, because the West Valley is where all the money is being invested. The West Valley is where all the growth is, and LD29 is in the heart of it. And if we look at it like what everything has been before, we cannot move on and grow and prosper the way we need to for the future. because there's a lot of opportunities now. There's a lot of growth that's happening now. Everything came to a halt. It's just educating and making the community understand that what their opportunities are available to them is what's going to make the difference and how they're going to grow and be able to expand as a person. And me, as a business owner that grew up in this community from day one and been in this community since now, I've seen the changes, I've seen the growth, I've seen the possibilities. It's legislation and legislators like that are going to be in office that are going to make that difference and understand that we can move forward and get past it.
And now, Representative Chavez, I'll pose the question to you as well. We look at a state like Georgia, which has opened up, faster than most, never was super restrictive to begin with. And, you have some business owners there who are worried about reopening, some workers there who are effectively being forced to come back to work, even though the demand for whatever product or service they're selling may not be as high, but now are unable to get unemployment benefits or other things of that nature. Should we inherit a situation similar to that in Arizona? How do we navigate that?
We have to tackle this issue with many different solutions, not just one. And I'm going to name a couple of business owners in my district. Rosie and Sam Lopez of Fine Ash over at Westgate, Vanessa Montez of Legends Event Center, Patty Ortega of Patty's Beauty Salon, and Vince Mai of Sushi Patron. Great business owners, resilient business owners in District 29 who have done everything within their power to either maintain open by doing curbside or delivery, or finding other ways of providing their services. Except the beauty salon, of course, because that one was closed down. But most importantly, moving forward, as government, we need to take it in many different directions. One, listening to the business owners and ensuring that they have the resources in order for them to be successful. Two, employees who feel that it's not time for them to go back and feel forced to go back, having that conversation with business owners and providing regulations that are going to allow them to stay out for a while until this pandemic goes over. And lastly, providing the necessary resources that the SBA has lacked to do to small businesses, especially in District 29. The majority of them are minority owned. They're either LGBT owned, women owned, Latino owned, African American owned, and they have received almost zero to none. That is unconscionable. And as a state, we need to do something to preserve these businesses.
And I'd like to finish up with a comment too, because thank you, Representative Chavez, for mentioning that. But one thing we haven't really talked about as well is before we return, we need to step up our testing as well. Because if you look at the number of COVID-19 testing, we don't have enough testing going on, and we need to expand on that. That way people feel safe, and that way we can pinpoint exactly where the trouble areas are, because Maricopa County does have the highest number of COVID-19 infections. So we also need to expand testing, open it up to more and everything to make people, so that way people will know that they're safe as well. So I just want to throw that out.
And now for our Republican candidates, beginning with Mr. Bragg, should the state doing something to help business owners or help workers who don't feel comfortable going back to work even after the stay-at-home order is lifted, or should it be up to them to evaluate those risks and fend for themselves effectively?
Well, for one thing, the federal government is doing all they can right there with the different solutions that they're giving out to every state for every business. And it's up to them to follow by also the guidelines that the federal government is giving to the businesses on what they need to do. And it's up to the business owners to go by that guideline that the state and the government feel that is necessary for them to open up their businesses. And for the ones who don't feel like going back or afraid to go back, there's nothing anyone can say to them for them to go back. But those owners of those businesses need workers. And I guarantee you, there's going to be a lot of workers out there want to work and want to do everything they can. For the ones who's afraid, that's up to them. We can't babysit them. We can't hold their hands, and we can't do anything. Only thing we can do is educate them on this virus. If you look at the H1N1 virus, how that hit, we didn't close down any shops. And we had more deaths than what we have now in this virus. And you could explain that. And like I said, when you said looking at different assets to give these people, to me, that's a code word for money. We need to give these businesses more money. Where's the money going to come from? It comes from you, the voters. It comes from you people that have jobs. What's going to happen? Taxes going to have to be raised to pay for these people who are afraid to go back to work. And that's not the American way. We Americans, we brave. We stood the Spanish flu, 9/11. We all kind of different devastations we had in America. We overcame it. The way we overcame it, we had people, ingenuity, thinkers, people who invent, people who develop, people was able to come up with different ideas on how to handle different business. Even in this situation, we're gonna have a whole new type of businesses coming up in this business. And that's what you look for. The government look for the people to come up with solutions. Your politicians, they're politicians. They don't come up with solutions. It's the ones who's out there in the trenches that comes up with solutions. They are the eyes and ears for the government to let them know this is what we can do. This is what worked. We tried this way. We have a good we have a good success in this way of doing things. That's what you need to do. I'm not a politician. I'm a worker. I'm a server. I don't come up with pretty rosy words to tell her. I just tell the truth. Say, look, you have to get back to work if you want to support your family. You have to get back to work if you want to keep your home or your cars. You got to go back to work because the government cannot be a nanny state for people who's afraid to go to work.
Right. I'll cut you off there so we can move on. Ms. Fokszanskyj-Conti, I see you kind of nodding in agreement there. What are you thinking?
Well, yes, I'd like to expound on what Billy's been talking about. I think Americans have great native ideas on how to redo what they have been doing. We have the stimulus coming in. Restaurants are, they're going to be opening up soon. But when they were closed, all of a sudden they were making to-go packages, and you can call in an order, pick it up. Some of them deliver. Some of them, in one state, they got a little robot that'll go down the sidewalk and deliver to your house. I guess those are very local. But we're being very, very creative in redoing things. And too, like Billy said, we're the people that are working, the essential workers that are working. They got money. Go and shop in your mom and pop stores. Go to your local restaurants like Little Bitsy Mamas over here, the Desert Rose and the Cliff, downtown Glendale. They all make packages to go for you. Then there's the thing like mattress companies are making masks now for the essential workers, and now they're making it for every day, so you can go out in the street and wear a mask. On the internet, you see on YouTube on how to make a homemade mask out of a scarf. So we're very innovative in coming up with new ways and new ideas. Now we have Honeywell here, who is a very high-tech company, techie type, and they're going to be making masks. And they're probably going to be making a lot of medical stuff and bringing the jobs back into the United States and away from China, wherever this whole thing started. And then there's T-Gen, who is working on medicine and an antidote for this. And at the same time, to talk more about the medical side of it, there's something called your circle of friends and tracking, social tracking, so that once one person comes up with the COVID.
I think I'm going to interrupt you here so I can give Ms. McMillan a chance to talk. Sorry, thanks. And Ms. McMillan, did you have anything that you wanted to add on this? Should we be helping out those who feel hesitant about coming back to work once the stay-at-home order is lifted, or should we, as Mr. Bragg put it, not be babysitting them?
Well, I am definitely looking forward to reopening up the state. When we do reopen the state, it will be up to people whether or not they want to return to work. And I do agree that we should not be nannying people who do not want to go to work because they're fearful. Fear is a wasted emotion, and nothing comes out of fear. If you want to find a solution, communication, education, figure out what's best for you. And I hear a lot of people speaking on, wearing masks, social distancing, and things like that. But what people don't mention when it comes to fighting this virus is self-care, drinking your water, eating your fruits and vegetables, making sure that you work out, a few times a week. So those are all very important too, just for everyday life to keep you, healthy and well. So when we do reopen, it will be up to people personally if they'd like to return to work. And I feel if they choose to not return to work, then that's going to be on them.
Great, thank you. And I will take the opportunity of a brief pause for any new arrivals, we have reiterate kind of what we're doing here. Again, this is a clean elections debate for the House race in LD29. Clean Elections, the state's voter education agency, hosts debates so voters have the opportunity to hear directly from the candidates, ask questions on the issues that matter most to them, and above all, vote informed. Now, candidates that have a contested primary election have been invited to participate in the debate. In this case, we have 3 Republicans and 3 Democrats running for the 2 seats in the House in LD29. The questions that we have asked so far and will continue to ask with some amendments by yours truly come directly from the voters. Leading up to the debates, Clean Elections conducted outreach to voters across the state, soliciting questions for these candidates. If you would like to submit a question, you can do so at any time via email at debates@kc-a.com, via text at 928-362-1062, or via a phone call at 480-937-1297. And if your question is for a specific candidate, please let us know. And we do screen them, so try to make them good. All right, let's get back to it. As a reminder, 1 to 2 minutes per question. Feel free to talk over one another. This is a conversation, not a Q&A. Now, obviously, school closures have characterized the responses of many states to this virus. It's been disruptive, to say the least, but some would say a necessary step. How do you plan on supporting students who are losing opportunities to gain experience either in industry, in academia, or in some sort of other work, losing the opportunity potentially to gain greater financial stability, as well as many other opportunities that they may have lost due to the quarantine and to the crisis overall? How do we help these people, especially once and if schools eventually reopen? Beginning with Mr. Andrade.
Yes, thank you, Arren, once again for the question on education. Once again, it comes back down to once we get past this COVID-19, we need to fund public education is the bottom line. Only 3 in 10 Arizonas have obtained a 4-year degree. More than 1 in 5 Latinos and American Indians in Arizona have not completed high school or earned a diploma. College completion rates yield higher incomes, better health, and lower rates of unemployment. Most importantly, contributes to a strong competitive labor market. So my first term there was education, K-12, community colleges and higher education to our universities and everything. We need to fully fund public education and everything in order for our students to be successful. And I always say to be able to compete in a global economy. Without the proper funding in our education system, we see the after effect. We need to stop the school to prison pipeline. Why? Because too many of our students in LD29 are set up for failure instead of for success. There's a lot of opportunity. And the only way we can stop that and make sure that they're successful, once again, it comes back to public education, supporting public education, holding charter schools accountable, stopping the ESAs and school vouchers, because all that does is drain public money from public education, from public schools and everything. So in order for us to get past this COVID-19, we need to really look back and say, enough's enough. We want our students to be successful. They have talent, they have knowledge. And if we give them the tools, who knows, one of them might be walking around with the vaccine for this COVID-19 and other things. Thank you.
Ms. Fokszanskyj-Conti, I saw you shaking your head there. I'll give you a brief opportunity if you wanted to respond to some of the things you said before I move on to the others.
He sounded like public school was the only way to get an education. There's and that they need more funding. I believe that a teacher has to have a heart, and it's in my day when you became a teacher is almost like a missionary, kind of thing, where you had a heart for it and not so much trying to fill up your pocket. More money is not going to teach Johnny how to read. When I first came to Arizona, the public school was saying, Johnny can't read. We need to have an override. Johnny can't read. We need an override. Okay, we had an override. And then the next election, we needed to override the override. And there was an override ever since then. And you know what? Johnny's way past high school, but he couldn't read in first grade. But now Johnny can't read at 12th grade. So
I have something to say to that also.
We need
Sure, yeah, but keep it quick because I want to get back to the original question. Mr. Bragg.
teach.
Yes, I noticed that like the gentleman said about we need to have we need to have more money invested into schools. Ever since my kids been in school, and now my kids, my daughter have her master's degree in Utah, and she was in a school where we found out that she had a problem, and when we solved that problem, she was a genius. She was listed as a genius, and now she's going probably go for a doctor's later. And all my kids, they went to school, and I talked to the teachers. They said, from what the administrations tell them, they don't have the money, or they're not getting funded, or they're not getting paid. The money stopped at the administration part, and we wonder why. And the school districts are not doing a good job. For one thing, we need to do is get back to basic in school. We need to teach critical thinking and problem solving, which we got away from that in school. And if you want the kids to be to get the jobs into electronics and things like that, to working in these different industries, you need to start training the kids, especially in high school, on those different jobs. Like for instance, when I was in the Air Force, I took young kids out to Luke Air Force Base so they could see a crew chief and how he worked on a $33 million aircraft, F-16, F-15. They get to talk to these guys. We find out we have more kids get educated, even in the service, because they teach them how to do technical jobs. School, we have to really, at the base, we have to retrain them on things that they missed in school. But yet we keep putting money into school, but we're not doing anything with the money. We're doing anything to get the kids educated or get them ready to get these high-tech jobs. That's what we need to open up in school. Once they learn critical thinking, once they learn how to do problem solving, instead of opening up the schools for social programs to let them feel about their feelings and things, we have to prepare them to be adults. That's what we have to feel. And one of the problems is single parents. We need to solve that problem right there.
I'm going to cut you off here real quick because we're getting a little off topic,
Okay.
and I want to give the other Democrats a minute to respond. I appreciate your thoughts. Mr. Castro, I think you were next in line. Back to the original question, which is once we inherit the situation where a lot of schools have closed for a long period of time, students might have trouble meeting educational requirements. Schools might have issues, with certain things like funding that they get from test scores, so on and so forth. How do we fix this situation, and how do we help some of these students once we do reopen?
Okay, so first of all, in 2016, I ran for the Litchfield Elementary School Board. I didn't win the seat. However, my passion for schools is at a high level. I feel that today in schools industries, we have taught kids to learn to pass tests. I think we need to definitely increase funding for schools, for education, not just for standardized education, but also for trade growth. There's a lot of trade out there that we're going to be bringing back to the U.S. There's a lot of kids out there don't know how to woodwork, steelwork, pipe work, electrical work, and we have some of the best unions in the state that are out there that I believe we can lean on to support. They have some of the best training centers that we can utilize. There's some opportunities that we can work with that. There's also things that we can do to influx, because COVID's going to change the game of how the world's going to go to the next level. There needs to be a lot more online assistance directly with the schools. That's where my kids have missed in education, because they haven't had real online assistance like they should have. They started to in the last 2-3 weeks, but if we had something in place like this from before, this is something that could have changed. We could have created it from the beginning, and now that we're here, a lot of implementation is going to have to happen with funding to come into schools, because there's going to cost is going to go up. Cost to sanitize, clean, a lot of cost of marketing that these schools are going to have to do, which includes businesses. And there's a lot of businesses out there that can actually get assistance from the school districts.
That's going to happen anyway. That's going to happen anyway with the cleaning and everything, the standards they're going to set forth to eradicate this germ. The thing is, you guys been in office for how long, and you have not implemented any of those plans about trade schools.
I've never been in office.
I know.
It's my first time running for office.
I'm just saying the people who've been in office are people who had anything to do with the school boards and with the teachers or anything with the money that we have going forward to school. It's like the money's going down a dark hole. What happened to the trade program they used to have in 1970 where they taught carpentry? What happened to all those other schools they used to have? And all of a sudden now they're mostly on academics than their own trade. They're more about
Mr. Bragg, I'd like to take this moment to invite you to Glendale Elementary School District. Let's set that up. I'd like you to see some of these schools that are held up by steel beams and where roofs are literally caving in because these schools do not receive the necessary funding. And talk about what funding really is. You're talking about trade programs that are offered by entities like WestMech. And if we were to be able to provide the unions the ability to provide apprentice programs, we'd be in a much better place. In an ideal world, what you are saying is absolutely true. It's absolutely correct. But you also have to understand that we cannot legislate off of personal experiences only.
You are not supposed to legislate that at all.
That's great that your daughter is a genius. That is great. But there is so much necessity in our district, especially in Maryville. I would hope that you come. I would hope that you come to Maryville and visit our schools and the great things that our districts are doing.
That the school has been taking.
Yes, and I am very proud to have led the conversation of 20 by 2020.
You're telling me about
everybody, hold on one second.
That's ridiculous.
1 second.
That means you're not putting the money where it counts. If you have a problem,
ridiculous here is thinking of an ideal world when we all know that doesn't exist. Let's look at the realities of our community. The community that you want to represent are obviously not the ones.
Guys, you're not even running against each other yet. Let's take 1 second. Deep breaths. Hold on. Okay. Ms. Fokszanskyj-Conti, I saw you raise your hand. Please go ahead.
You were saying that they got beams falling down in schools. Buildings don't teach the students, okay? And you know what? We're in this.
And so you're going to teach them outside?
Right.
In 110-degree weather?
Your priorities are messed up, sir.
Well, allow her a second to speak, please.
Kids in school through the internet. All they need is a computer. You don't need a building.
We need to incentivize teachers. We need to incentivize teachers with more pay.
Incentivize.
Have heart to
you have talked to the right teachers then. Because a lot of teachers tell me off the cuff that they don't like to talk to the administration because they don't have any tenure. They don't have any say. What happened to the money that Governor Ducey signed for the teachers to get all this money? It goes to the administration and then it don't go anywhere. Your administration is supposed to fix those buildings.
1 second.
The buildings. Why?
Okay. All right. I'm gonna reframe the question around a more concrete policy so we can maybe stop speaking from anecdotes quite as much. Should we be examining a way to fund our schools differently? Democrats, many of you guys would argue that we need a more sustainable funding source for public education than the largely tax and formula based system that we use currently. I'll propose this question to all of you guys. Again, invited to talk over each other, but please be respectful. How should we be funding our education system differently, whether that means we need to fund it less or fund it more? Mr. Andrade.
First of all, we need to stop ESAs, which drain public money from public schools and everything. ESA's expansion is killing our schools. We have charter schools that we're not holding them accountable as well. How many of these charter schools have been funded and now have gone under? And I'll use a lawmaker who sits at the legislature who owned a charter school, sold them for $13 million, 13 million public dollars, because when he sold his schools the charter school, Benjamin Franklin, he walked away with $13 million. All this money that we keep throwing away
Don't pay that money.
for for-profit charter schools, for-profit everything. And what are we doing? We're shortchanging our students. We have a teacher shortage that is real when it comes to CTEs.
Charter
When it
schools
comes to
have been
apprenticeship
educating the kids
programs,
better than the education.
this legislature has done everything to destroy public education except for funding public education.
And that's why Arizona's
Been
number
there
48
with
in
the
the nation
cuts
for
to
schools.
K-12, the cuts to community college, the cuts to higher
I
universities.
mean, it sounds like you guys would all agree that the state ranks fairly low in the terms
Correct.
of public education, right? That's something
Absolutely.
that Mr. Bragg
Absolutely.
said.
Absolutely. From all the money that you've been getting for the schools from Arizona, from the property tax, it looks like that you've been mismanaging the money. When you have buildings falling down, that's mismanaging the money. That's mismanaging your budget. When you have teachers want to go somewhere else because they're not getting paid enough to teach this kid, you are mismanaging money.
There's
You
definitely a
are a
mismanagement of money.
GOP-led state.
There's definitely a mismanagement of money when one of your fellow Republicans makes over $100 million off of the back of students. That's an issue. And that's exactly why we don't have parity in this state. There needs to be parity between traditional and charter schools.
So you
Now,
blame
No,
one
no, no, no.
person.
Let me
I'm
finish.
gonna jump in.
Now, I am.
You blame
one second.
one Republican.
Mr. Bragg.
No,
Mr.
no,
Bragg.
no.
We haven't heard from Ms. McMillan in a while. I'm going to give her an opportunity to talk because I think we've kind of been drowning her out. Ms. McMillan, what are you thinking right now?
Well, I'm thinking that, of course, education is important. Knowledge is power. And I can acknowledge that, Arizona education is all-time low. I attended public school in Arizona, elementary, middle school, as well as high school. And I feel that we need to hold everybody accountable, and there needs to be more transparency in what's being funded, where the money is being spent, holding the students accountable, but also taking into account the students' mental health, the students' learning abilities and potential learning disabilities, making sure that parents are participating in their children's education. And I would say incentivizing teachers for when they do, produce high performing scores, that they are rewarded for doing such, and for holding teachers who continue to produce students who do not, make the grade level mark. Those kids should not pass on to the next grade, and those teachers, after years and years of producing failing classes, should be reevaluated as to what they are doing. And something else that I feel would greatly help the Arizona education, especially here in LD29, is, like I said, parent participation and allowing for parents to be able to take classes that will teach them English so that they can help their students when their students leave, or when the child leaves, it's able to get help from its parent who understands the homework and understands what their child is being taught.
And I'll pose that original question that I asked the others to you as well, Ms. McMillan, which is, how can we continue to support these students once we reopen schools? What specific steps should we take in order to facilitate that transition and ensure that nobody's educational attainment is diminished too greatly?
I feel that we should keep it real with the students, and we should test the students and see exactly where they're at. Students shouldn't just get a pass into the next grade because they've had an extended summer vacation, and then evaluating where the students are at, and like I said, holding them accountable and giving them the best that they need to excel.
Mm-hmm. Great. Move on. I'm going to move on from education here briefly. Clearly a hot button issue. I'm sure we'll be back. I want to talk a little bit about how the state legislature, which is obviously the body that you all aspire to be a part of, has responded to this crisis. The legislature, led by Republicans, and with the signature of Governor Doug Ducey, passed two kind of main aid packages, totaling, I think, $105 million to help the state cope with the virus, but ultimately could not agree on certain enhancements to the social safety net, to unemployment benefits, and other such things that some Democrats in the legislature had pushed for. Should the lawmakers at the Arizona Capitol have done more, especially to help some of the lower income working class residents in neighborhoods like Maryvale and elsewhere in your district? Or did we do the right thing by basically letting the federal government take up the bulk of the aid as they have done? And I will begin this time with Mr. Bragg.
I believe what the federal government is doing exactly what they said they was going to do. They delivered checks to everyone, the stimulus checks. Also, if you look at it, people who's receiving unemployment, they're getting another $600 on top of that. I watched a young lady on the news supposed to be going back to work, but she won't go because she's making more money with the money she's getting from the unemployment check and plus the other money the government giving her. The thing about it is the people has to have a will to get back to work because the check is not going to last forever. And people, American people, want to get back to work. Give them that chance to get back to work. That's what I'm asking. Give them that chance. It is up to the legislature to say it's time for the people to get back to work. We cannot sustain this long with people, with the businesses out and the people out. We have a lot of mental health going on with the people not being able to work, staying home. We need to open it up and go step by step on these different businesses and let them come up with the idea of what needs to be done according to the guidelines that the federal government has set. All states are not doing the same thing because they have different levels. They have different, like I said, different levels going on with the health plan. Like if you look at Wyoming or look at Montana, they're totally different than here in Arizona. So every state have to come up with their own solution on how to handle this because the federal government coming with one size fit all, and it can't happen. You have to find out from each state what they need, and then they'll go from there.
And Mr. Castro, obviously, you're not currently in the legislature. Outside looking in, from what you know about how the state legislature did respond to this crisis with the $55 million plus a separate $50 million aid package, was that enough? Should there have been more, either in terms of more financial aid, more enhancements to social safety nets, as I suggested, or did we do the right thing by leaving most of that to the feds?
I definitely don't think it should have been left mostly to the feds. It should have been appropriated, some of that to a lot of small businesses so that they can get the support that they need, because a lot of small businesses didn't get stimulus. A lot of people didn't get any of the stimulus out there, whatever package that they applied for, whether it's an unemployment. I mean, they offered an unemployment stimulus for self-employed. That still hasn't come to fruition yet. There's a lot of things out there that I think that they didn't really track and make available, because these small businesses what makes our communities what they are. You know, yes, there's a lot of big businesses. There's a lot of big businesses got $10 million, you know, because they considered a small business on the federal side of 500 people or less. I asked a lot of large company owners that I know that I feel was a huge company, and I'm like, how many business owners do you have? Oh, we got like 200. And I'm like, wow. And you guys got like 35 offices across the state. And that's what they're still considered a small business, which as a state level, we need to look at our smaller businesses. They should have appropriated more to them to help them get through, because that's where we're going to shop when they do open. That's where we might not go anymore because they can't open anymore. You know, I know a lot of salon owners, lash artists. I know a lot of people in the business that work directly face to face within 1 foot of, you know, the person where they breathe and talk, that they want to get back to work. You know,
well, let them go back to work. Let them go back to work.
Right, they're going to get back to work.
No, let them go back now. We have seen enough model scales. We have seen enough everything the government has given, this state has given. Let them go back to work now. They want to go back to work now.
But talking to them, the point is, talking to them is that they want to make sure that they're safe, that their clients are safe. They're putting restrictions on their clients. They're spreading out, and what it is, it's like when you go to a salon, they're going back to back.
You use the word safe. What do you mean by safe? What degrees are you talking about? Safe. That safe has a lot of connotation to it. Safe means that you're doing what the government say with the guidelines they use, that they're using gloves, you're using masks. That is safe. So let them go back to work. They're keeping social distance. Let them go back to work. They redesigning their restaurants. Let them go back to work.
But with all that, there's going to be a higher cost to all these businesses at the same time. There's going to be a lot of costs that nobody's foreseeing right now, that when we get into legislation, when I get legislation, I know that I'm going to be dealing with this same conversation in January.
Let them go back to work.
This is not going to end today.
Let them go back to President Trump has signed a bill for the small businesses to get money for them. So what more do you want? They need to
honestly,
go back to work right now.
I know a lot
We
of
don't
businesses
do
are
any
getting
more
into it.
studies. If you do more studies, we're going to lose more businesses.
So, Mr. Bragg, are you saying that the state should not be appropriating any more money to help any of these businesses at this time?
Not this time. Let them go back to work.
Okay, I'm gonna kick this over to some of the folks who are actually in the legislature as this was getting argued. I guess beginning with Representative Chavez. Obviously, Democrats don't have a majority in the legislature, so it could be tough to kind of actualize your visions. But there were some moments of leverage here and there when perhaps maybe you guys could have pushed a little bit harder. Do you think that the legislature did enough to help the state? Could it have done more? And what were some of those steps that it could have taken if perhaps there was a little bit more, political momentum?
Right before we recessed, we appropriated $50 million for the Arizona Department of Health, and they've done an amazing job with the money. Of course, we can do more. We're sitting on $1 billion in the rainy day fund. Well, it looks pretty rainy to me in terms of the need in our communities, especially up in the Navajo Nation. We cannot decline to say that the individuals up in northern Arizona are suffering far more than what we're seeing in other areas of the state. And because of that, we can't turn a blind eye. They definitely need resources. They definitely need for us to appropriate dollars for ventilators and health equipment, et cetera, or else we're never going to see those numbers decline. Now, in terms of getting back to work, of course, I believe that we should get back to work, get our economy back on track. But we're only going to do that if we are taking the precautions, if we're taking the numbers and science into consideration. Other than that, we're going to continue. We're going to continue on the track that we're doing.
You've been mentioning science so many times. The thing about it is, what science are you talking about? They have already understand what they need to do. You talking about ventilators. How many people in Arizona is on ventilators now? How many ICUs have people in it on ventilators? You go by that number and you find out, is this really true? Is this what you really need? Or do you adjust the cost of that?
Mr. Bragg, do you have any of the numbers that you're talking about here? Do you have answers to these questions that you're posing?
I don't have it right here on hand, but I heard it on the news. Also, I saw it on the, I got on my computer and saw some of these numbers here. And also I found out that from what my wife worked at the hospital, they laid off nurses because they don't have a thing to do, because they want elective surgery done. They all waiting for this coronavirus and the people to come in. They have not shown, according to the models that the United States government has got showed them, the state's supposed to have over 100,000 people or so in the hospitals right now. Is wrong. You keep moving the goalposts every time you come up with your models, every time you come up with your science, instead of looking at what's going on in the hospital. Look at how many people got sick. Look at how many people who died. What did they die of? Did they die of a coronavirus, or did they die of some other illness that they had coronavirus?
I think science correlates to the numbers that you're talking about, so I don't know exactly where you're going. Now, the reality in northern Arizona is one of people that are dying constantly. You cannot deny that. You cannot deny the misery of other individuals. When you're sitting in your kitchen, no, it's not fear. It's a reality. It's numbers.
You go by numbers. What numbers do you have? Like the gentleman asked me my numbers. Tell me your numbers.
All right, guys, we're going to take a second here. We're going to take a second here so Ms. Fokszanskyj-Conti can talk. And I'll give you an opportunity. Please go ahead.
I want to say that we have not hit the overflow. We had the ship come in. We have the pop-up tents with the ventilators there. We haven't hit them yet. So the hospitals are taking care of everything they need to within the hospital. So we have plenty. We're ready for the overflow. We haven't hit it yet. Hopefully that means we're flattening out as a country. I don't know maybe the exact numbers for Arizona, but as a country, we're flattening out. We did not need all those extra ventilators that we got ready for, but we were ready for it. So that's the thing. So yeah, Mr. Bragg is right about the hospitals. Yeah, the hospitals are taking care of what's happening. And about the CDC, and he was saying they're not all dying of COVID virus. The CDC, I think it was 2 weeks ago, came out and had to explain that when somebody dies of a heart attack and they had the COVID virus, they are counting that as a person that died that had COVID virus, not because of COVID virus. So that kind of makes the numbers sound a little scary. So now that we know that, you died actually of a heart attack, but they had the COVID virus.
Well, I got information right here. If you want to hear it, but numbers, here's the numbers right here. It says that the numbers of death has leveled off at 73 since May 1st, and this is at the Navajo Nation. That's the numbers I have, 73. And what percentage point is that versus what the population is?
Well, it's 73 deaths in the last 4 days. I mean, would you not argue that that's significant?
That's
As
a
an
lot.
elected official, my job is to ensure that people have all of the resources and that they are safe and healthy.
Do
And
they
that's
have the
why I'm
resources?
sitting in this seat.
Do
That's
they
why
have
I'm
the
sitting in this seat, Billy.
Let's pose the question then, right? So the Navajo Nation, obviously, public infrastructure there is sort of infamously poorly funded. I imagine there's lots of other lower income areas around the state where there are similar dynamics in terms
So
of
the virus should be higher there.
right.
Thank you.
How can we help our friends on the Navajo Nation? They have higher per capita rates of the virus than almost anywhere else in the country. Not great healthcare or public infrastructure. What is the policy solution here? We're talking a lot about anecdotes. What is the policy solution for lower income communities like on the Navajo Nation that have been hit so hard by this? Beginning with Mr. Andrade.
Yes, thank you, Arren. And I'm glad you asked that question and everything, because here are the numbers. Okay, number of cases, 8,919. Number of deaths, 362. Number of COVID tests, 85,253. Just on the Navajo Reservation. And it encompasses a large area of our state, 549, 800, 540. So that's close to 1,900 cases of COVID just on the Navajo Nation in itself. Maricopa County, of course, has 4,751. Once again, what we're looking at and what we're talking about is the number of people that have died.
Yes.
What is an acceptable number to you, Mr.
What is
Bragg?
an
Because I'll
acceptable
tell you
number?
what the acceptable
I'll tell you
number
what,
is.
the numbers that you
Zero.
gave, the numbers that you
Zero.
gave, the numbers
No matter
that you
what
gave,
you're talking about, no matter
people-
what you're saying,
the numbers that you
it
gave
is
are
our
people who had underlying
responsibility as
illness,
a
such
government
as
to
diabetes,
take
such as
care of the people.
such as diabetes,
I'm speaking, sir,
such
not
as
you.
other
I was giving you
illness
the
right
courtesy
now.
to speak.
That
Well,
you
you're
I am
you
speaking
got
for the
that
same
thing.
respect.
Mr.
You would-
Andrade.
Let me answer that.
Right.
Let me answer that. You have gave numbers. How many people that have underlying illness, such as diabetes, such as heart condition? Have you ever looked at that? Did they break down the numbers on that? No, they just give you a total number on that part there. Let's break down the numbers according to their illness. Let's break down the numbers according to what other illness they have.
But even if those people have pre-existing conditions or underlying health conditions, if they are ultimately dying or dying before, perhaps it would be natural because they have the virus in addition to an underlying condition. Is that not something that we should be accounting for as well?
We also have to account for the ones who have the flu right there that's dying because of the flu.
We're talking about COVID-19.
Are you counting that
referring
also?
to the
Are
flu,
you
please.
counting that also? Or are you just leaving it to the coronavirus? We have to look at all of those things that's happening. You don't have to just take one virus and just make that into a political issue. We have people dying because of underlying issues. I've been noticing that every time they said this death was according to underlying issue. And that's what you have to look at also. So if you break it down like that, people have an understanding on how many people are dying. We have people dying every day for something. And that one thing enough, I feel sorry for those people that died. I feel sorry for their family. Well, we had that been going on before this virus. We had more people dying because of the flu virus that we had.
They died of a heart attack. But
Heart attacks, things like that. And the thing is that you got to put all of that in perspective. Don't list everything because of this virus. And that's one thing they're doing. They're playing politics with the virus.
We are not playing politics. We're talking about decisions that were made at the state level to keep our community safe. And because of the social distancing and everything that was implemented and everything, that's what's saving lives and everything. And at the end of the day, as long as we're saving lives, that's all that matters. Because one death is too many. when
You're
we
right,
could
for
prevent
that
something
family.
from happening, which there
For that
is.
family. Do
Sir,
not
I'm
use
speaking
the,
once again. You're very rude and interrupting all the
I have
time.
to ask you to give more space to the other candidates, please.
Right. So and once again, when we're talking about preventable deaths or diabetes, there's insulin and other medication. But you throw in something like COVID-19, where there is no vaccine.
Happen to
When
have.
somebody passed away due to that because there is no vaccine, that's what we're talking about. Certain things that are treatable and we have medication for it or treatment for it, but these people are dying because they got a virus. And if we're able to stop the further spread of COVID-19 by doing what we did, then yes, it was worth, because it saved many lives. And to me, at the end of the day, it's about saving lives.
in every perspective, including diabetes, heart control, heart condition, everything counts.
Well, at the end of the
use,
day,
but do not use this virus as a political deal to get more of your whatever you want to put part of. We have people out there that has antibodies. That's what they're looking at now. We have people you have tested. Yeah, we have more people had the antivirus in their system. I mean, had the coronavirus in their system, but they're not spreading because they have the antivirus in their system. You're not saying that.
I love how you stand on your statistics, and when other statistics are brought to you, you disallow. You can't. You're going to take what they are for face value.
I didn't disallow anything.
You just disallowed the fact that the Navajo Nation don't have the same coronavirus, COVID illnesses as they say. Well, you got to say it for yours too. Are you saying that the Navajo Nation do not have problem with alcoholism? You said that they don't have. Everybody does. Everybody does. I know. I'm talking about the Navajo. I'm talking about the Navajo Nation.
That's uncalled for. That's uncalled for, Bragg.
I'm talking about the Navajo Nation now. I'm saying do they have problems with alcohol?
That is racist.
No, that is not racist, because we looking at what I'm doing. I'm looking at statistics at different areas, like the lower part of Phoenix, who might have the lower part where the income is not high. They can have a high drug problem, alcohol problem. They can have high blood pressure problem, diabetes problem. We get then you look at the nation as a whole, like you said, Navajo Nation. Well, I'm saying, do they have alcoholism? Do they have diabetes? Do they have this? Could that be the problem with the virus, coronavirus? That is not nation. That is not. Don't tell me I'm racist, because my father's is a Cherokee Indian, born in Oklahoma. Now, don't hit me with that racist stuff. That's what you're good at doing. Democrats are good identity politics, and that's exactly what you just. That's exactly what you just did.
We're getting way off topic here. Miss McMillan, again, want to bring you into this. Haven't heard from you in a minute. What else could the state legislature be doing right now in order to help us continue to move through the virus? Or should we just be kind of taking a step back and waiting for things to develop?
Well, thank you. I think that what we're doing right now, we're doing pretty well. We're taking, we still have the stay-at-home order, even though I don't support it. We are offering more testing. We are learning more about the virus day to day, antibodies, and there's a potential vaccine that's going to be coming out. So this is just one of those things where I feel you definitely have to take it day by day. And I'm personally not in the legislative branch yet, but I would like to think that they are doing their best to look out for the Arizona people.
Okay. And we're going to quickly change gears here a little bit. I appreciate how passionate everybody is getting, and I will briefly remind folks that if, for the voters at home, if they have further questions, we probably will not be able to get to all of them. We've already gone on a fair amount of time, but you can submit them via email at debates@kc-a.com, via text at 928-362-1062, or on the phone at 480-937-1297. And please specify if the question is for a specific candidate or for all candidates. One question that we got in from the voters, and something that if any of you are eventually in the legislature, and for those of you that are currently in the legislature will have to deal with, is what the economic devastation of this virus will do to the state's budget. The legislative budget analysts estimate that Our revenues could be hit by as much as $1.2 billion by the time that this is all over in the next couple fiscal years, which would essentially evaporate the rainy day fund if we were to use it all to offset that cash shortfall. Some would argue that maybe this could be an opportunity to consider generating new revenues, which of course is not an idea that's popular with most Republicans. Some Republicans would argue that in fact we need to do the opposite and cut taxes further, help stimulate demand among citizens. What exactly is the path forward? It's a gargantuan cash shortfall. I don't expect all of you to have a perfect solution, but I'm curious what some of your suggestions are, beginning with our incumbents. Mr. Chavez, we'll start with you.
Well, historically, the state of Arizona was always one of the last states to fall into recession, one of the first to recover. Now, after the Great Recession that we had in the mid 2000s, 2008, 2010, what we saw is that Arizona was one of the first states to fall into a recession and has been one of the last states to recover, and that puts us on a very dangerous track. Now, our economy prior to the pandemic, we were doing great. We were on track to being a leading state in tech, a leading state in distribution, and a pathway into international trade from Mexico. One thing that I'm very proud of working on was USMCA. Now, leading forward after this pandemic ends or blows over in terms of the high trends. What we're going to have to do in the state of Arizona is obviously creating new revenue sources to ensure that we're paying off our debts, to ensure that we don't fall into a hole that we fell into during the last 10 years. And so being able to attract that business, being able to attract that investment back into the state of Arizona, that's very much necessary in order for us to continue prospering.
Mm-hmm. And now I'll kick it over to one of the Republicans, and we just heard Representative Chavez say that perhaps we should be considering generating new revenues. That does mean potentially a tax increase. At times has been treated as blasphemy in the state legislature. It's something that Republicans in majority generally do not go for. Could the cash shortfall that we'll be faced with, could this present an opportunity to maybe forsake some of those dogmas and consider a tax increase of some kind, or should that continue to be off the table? And we'll begin with you, Ms. Fokszanskyj-Conti.
Yes. I think we're at a new stage where we're coming up to a new normal, and we're on a learning curve where we're going to be inventing new things, new ways of doing things. And I think we have to reach out to our people and family and help take care of them financially, whatever their needs are. We have to go and support our small businesses and mom and pop stores until everything can break loose. We just have to support ourselves with the stimulus and the TGN. We're going to bring back. We're going to be bringing back our outsourcing and bringing a lot of companies and work here in America, make it America first, America great, made in America kind of thing. So that will bring a lot of jobs in. That'll come in and take time. And opening up jobs or waiting another week or two, it's hard if you're on a week-to-week paycheck. Those are the people we have to help. Those that have money, will pay it forward for somebody else until, we can break through this. We all want to be safe. We don't want to put people out there in the streets and, but yet there's some people that want to go out. And so we're not in what is it called? A lockdown state or
I'll bring you back to the question, which is, which is, we're going to be faced inevitably, at least according to these estimates that we have in the legislature, with a pretty significant cash shortfall in the coming years. As many as $1 billion, which is pretty much, we're pretty bad. And we kind of saw a similar thing on a grander scale during the recession. We eventually saw a sales tax increase that the voters approved under the auspices of Governor Jan Brewer, who kind of fought against her own party in order to get this passed. Should we be considering new taxes or an increase in taxes in order to help balance the state's books once this virus blows up?
Back there in the what was it, 10, 12, we were printing money every Friday night to pay for the bills for the week, and then we were afraid of the stock market was going to fall off the cliff, and that would be like, if we stopped the government, it would be like committing suicide. This is almost like what we're doing right now with stopping businesses from going to work. They can't do it for very long. So it's a timing thing. And, I think like what Ducey's doing is letting parts of different companies opening up at different times as we flatten out to be safe. As far as what legislation can do to give more of a stimulus, hopefully if we can juggle our health and our holding back the businesses going to work, and at the other end finding medicine and what's the word I want to say, getting not a stimulus, but this medical catch up with I am totally fried to catch up with the word I want, medicine for to cure it, to give us time to find that. Like TGen is working on it. We're working on it with the antibodies.
Okay, I'll leave it. I'll leave it there for now.
I'm not there, so I don't know what the other possibilities.
That's totally fine. It's understandable. It can be kind of arcane. I'll kick it now over to Mr. Castro. The tax increases can be politically difficult to pull off. They can be unpopular with many voters. But some would argue that it's something that we have to do right now in order to balance the budget. Is this something that you think that we should consider? And assuming that there is still a Republican governor in the governor's office and at least one of the bodies of the legislature, how do you pitch a tax increase to a GOP majority that is not particularly inclined to accept one?
Okay, so first of all, I have to say that we have a $1 billion rainy fund, and it's raining right now. Okay, so number one, before the COVID happened, that this economy, going back to what Chavez had mentioned, that when the market crashed from 2008 to 2012, that the economy fell. And in Arizona, it fell because construction was the primary economic push of how it drove business. Now today, talking to city officials that are in the district and surrounding districts such as Glendale, Tolleson, Avondale, Goodyear, and Buckeye, they have already been paid for and committed. A lot of medical, restaurant. They built Red Bull. They have White Claw. They have Microsoft coming out here. APS is still working and grinding to build the lines. There's a lot of business that's still going to be pushing forward. The trick is what the comfortability of the people of how they want to go back to work. Now, there's some people that are like, hey, I'm ready to go back to work. Whatever their tolerance level of COVID is, that's an individual deal. As a company, they have to be able to support the sensitivity of what they're going to be providing at their employment. Now, as that is still being built today, nothing has stopped. The real estate market hasn't stopped. The fear has created people to leverage back off their mortgages, or fear has leveraged people to push back payments. It might seem like it's 2021 right now because the last 60 to 90 days we've been in the environment that we're in right now. But at the end of the day, I feel like that $1 billion rainy fund is going to help, and the economy is still going to push forward because we have so many and different types of businesses that are coming here because Arizona has been business friendly. They have been pushing to be business friendly. This is why companies are coming here. This is why they are establishing and providing jobs and increasing wealth for the community. And a lot of the LD29 community has had to travel across the valley. Tempe, downtown Phoenix. They've had to travel to Scottsdale, Chandler. Now they have the opportunity just to travel right in their backyard. So these opportunities are going to develop, and I think it's going to grow and continue the economy. Yes, we're going to need help, but that's what the $1 billion rainy day fund is for. It's there to help persist our state economy and keep it going.
So you would disagree with what Mr. Chavez said, that we might need to consider new mechanisms for generating revenue, with a tax increase, in other words?
Well, yeah, well, because you got a hole that's going to happen from the $1 billion, the billion rainy day fund. So you have to fill that. So yes, there has to be new ways to generate. Yes, I'm saying that. But I think that what the economy is not like, we weren't a struggling economy. We were one of the shining stars of the U.S. You know, we have the fifth largest city. Phoenix is the fifth largest city in the country. Maricopa is one of the largest counties in the U.S. You know, and it's very competitive. It's very competing. And so what's happening is, I think that there's still a lot of business coming in. There's still a lot of people coming from other states to Arizona. Our economy is going to continue to thrive. Yes, we're going to need to do some adjustments, because even as we speak right now, we don't even know what those real adjustments are. We're talking a lot of scenarios until we have facts and figures of where these funds are depleting and where we're going to be putting them in the future, which I think is not going to be until the next term anyways. So at the end of the day, we just have to realize that we have to roll with the ball and make adjustments. And yes, if it calls for increasing some sales tax or increasing taxes so that we can, you know, keep that fund at maybe that $1 billion mark, if not more, then that's something we'll have to do.
Mr. Andrade, I saw you raise your hand. Obviously, you've been in the legislature. What's your thought about this?
Well, first of all, every year since that I've been there, there's been tax credit. And in 2020, the total tax credit that we calculated was 482, and I get, because this number is staggering, $482,727,682 just on tax credits alone. This has occurred every year since Governor Ducey's been there, where if you think about it, maybe possibly over $1 billion just in tax credits alone. Last summer, when a committee was formed to find out exactly what these tax credits were doing, nobody had any idea. So we have no idea who these tax credits are actually helping. If it's helping the working families, employees, we have no idea. There's no transparency, so nobody's been keeping track of a tax credit for crop dusters. And really, do we need a tax credit for crop dusters? Those are the type of tax credits that have been going out ever since I've been there. And then we also need to start looking at when it comes to criminal justice reform. Why? Because the Department of Corrections budget has doubled since 2000 and compromises 10% of the state's expenditure at $1.2 billion. If we had criminal justice reform, we would lower that cost. And once again, we're talking about transparency when it comes to our prisons, because we saw with the door locks and everything, and when we were questioning, here you have a lot of money and you can't even maintain your facilities because the door locks are broken. Once again, we need transparency when it comes to that. The for-profit private prison industry as well. When you look at all the tax credits combined, that's our solution by not raising taxes. And something we haven't talked about, we already owe over $1 billion just on HERF. And you know what HERF is, right? Highway User Revenue Fund, which is our streets, our roads, our highways, our bridges. We have shortchanged that. And now that's going to put us even further back in everything. So we've been kicking this can down the road over the years and everything. And so we could claim, well, we have a rainy day fund of over $1 billion, when in actuality, we have robbed, we have taken from Peter to pay Paul. So we do have the money. And is there talk about tax credits? We need to go line by line for these tax credits and see which ones are actually working. Have they raised employee pay? Are workers making a livable wage? Do they have affordable health care? Do they have pensions, paid vacations? Those are the things we should be shooting for. And guess what? Guess who does that? Unions do that. It's called accountability, making sure that people can make a living. At the end of the day, when we start talking about taxes, we need to look at what we're doing as a state. Why are we giving money away? That's probably not even working and benefiting the working families, especially in LD29. I'm finished. Thank you.
Leave it there. Cool. So we're gonna do two more kind of policy questions here before I allow you guys to give your closing statements.
Well, I would like to say something about that.
Oh, please, Mr. Bragg, go ahead. Sir, I didn't see you there. Go ahead.
Yes, because I just let him talk on that
Yeah.
part.
I am very respectful. Thank you.
If you want this state to get more revenue in, do not pass any tax bills. No taxes, because of the more business will come here because of we have less taxes. Is more money will come out with people buying things and buying more merchandise from other stores or manufacturers that cause the revenue to get high. You already proved about the rainy day program because of Governor Ducey, the tax breaks that he gave the businesses to come here. The main thing you want to start the revenue to start building up back in our coffers. Let the people go back to work. That's where it's going to come from. If you start raising taxes, we already went down that road. We won't have businesses come here. We have people moving. They'll move to Texas where the taxes is less. But yet Texas got a revenue out of this world. Why? Because they let the business thrive. We need to do the same thing here. Do not raise taxes on the people. Let the revenue build by people purchasing items, new items. That's how we raise taxes here. You raise taxes on individuals, they don't going to even produce even more because
do you think that letting these businesses reopen, as you suggested, do you think that will make up for all of the lost revenue from the last month and a half of diminished business activity, though?
It's a beginning.
Mm-hmm. Well, what's the end?
You have to start somewhere. And where you start, you open up the business, let the people work. Then more businesses come here to work, to open up here because we have low taxes. It's a business-friendly state. That's what you want to have, a business-friendly state by not raising taxes on individual businesses here that comes here. Mm-hmm. It already worked, already been proven.
Great. All right, I'm going to move on to a couple more questions, as I said, before I let you guys give your concluding statements. Mr. Andrade, I think, mentioned criminal justice reform. You know, if you were following the legislative session this year, that has been one of the signature issues. There was a bill to allow certain people incarcerated for nonviolent misdemeanors, for the most part, to end their sentences early if they complete certain sort of self-help programming, substance abuse treatment, so on and so forth, called earned release credits. You may be familiar with it. The bill appears to be on a hold now, obviously, since the legislature is not currently in session. But some have argued that steps like these to diminish or decrease the prison population, to release some nonviolent offenders, let them get out of their sentences early, could in fact have been helpful in a time like this, when many of the prisons are overcrowded, and now we're starting to see some of the first deaths from COVID-19 in the state's prison system. Ms. McMillan, I'll begin with you. What is your position on issues like sentencing reform, effectively letting certain nonviolent offenders or some others even get out of prison early, get back to their lives on the other side for one reason or another?
Thank you. Well, for low-level misdemeanor nonviolent crimes, like you said, there would be things that they would have to do in order to get out. And if they're not able to do those things or fail to comply, then I would definitely say they need to stay in jail or prison. But for, like you mentioned, low-level misdemeanors, it would, to me, benefit them to go to those classes, to go to the self-help places and allow them to get back into the community, allow them to, get back to their life and hopefully make the best out of themselves.
Mm-hmm. And I'll kick it down to Mr. Chavez. Haven't heard from you in a minute. Why couldn't we get earned release credits done this session? And do you think that we might have a chance of getting that done in the near future? What kind of benefit might that serve when we do?
The legislative process is very complicated once it starts turning. And in terms of what has happened in the legislature, and we have to remember that it is a Republican-controlled legislature, and the early release credits was actually introduced by a Republican, Representative Walt Blackman, and even him has not been able to pass legislation, a much-needed piece of legislation, especially with the current situation that we live in the state of Arizona, where we have individuals serving crimes of up to 20 years that today, in today's age, would be considered low offense crimes. Now, I believe that in the upcoming term, we will have more movement in terms of criminal justice just because of the shift that we're going to see. I'm specifically going to speak about the Senate and its Judiciary Committee that has held up many great bills that would definitely move criminal justice forward here in the state of Arizona.
And Mr. Castro, now I'll go to you. I think for a lot of states, this virus has been an opportunity for reflection on the nature of its prison system. Some states, some governors have chosen to release hundreds of low-level offenders in order to try to reduce the risk of transmission in the prison system. Our governor has not taken those steps. Should we be considering something like that? Or if not, what other changes should we be making in our prison system because of the virus?
Well, first of all, the prison system has become a big business. So at the end of the day, the more people they have in there, the more money they make. Now, when it regards to the safety of the prisoners, as well as the correction officers that I have family members and friends that are correction officers, I support the fact that, yeah, we need to start relieving some pressures in the prisons with, sentence reformings and making sure that, like Chavez had mentioned, that there's a lot of people in prison now that would have not been there as long as they are today because of the fact when they got sentenced, 15 years ago, and they're still looking at 5 more years or something, they might have gotten 3 to 5 years today. So I think those things definitely need to be looked at. But like I said, it's a big business for prisons. So it's always a battle when it comes to people that have committed crimes or have done injustice to the community. And when you look at those people that have done that, we have to do a lot of reform. It's very specific. And people in my district have suffered that quite a bit. In my community, growing up in Maryville, I've had a ton of friends that either have passed away, or either have been incarcerated, and family members, and they've come out and they're very successful in their own ways. They've gotten jobs, they've thrived, and some were in their 20 years and some were in their 5 years. And I think there's definitely opportunities there to give them. A lot of people are worried about, if I go to prison and come back out, what am I going to do? There's opportunities to teach them to be small business owners. Create your own business, create your own future. Give them light at the end of the tunnel. And without prison reform, it's definitely not gonna happen. And I definitely need to start now for the future.
Mr. Bragg, you've been pretty quiet so far. I'll give you an opportunity to chime in on this. If you're kind of familiar with the issue of sentencing reform, what are your thoughts? Should we be creating a process by which we start to release, certain kind of low-level offenders before the ends of their official sentences?
Well, let's use the model that President Trump started on the First Step Act. Let's use their system on how they're doing it and how they bring about with the First Step Act. We start on that principle first, and it has worked out really good. If you've been watching the news, one young lady got released from prison because they gave her the wrong sentence. They gave her a longer sentence on a first-time crime. We need to look at that part there. And plus that, if you want to look at prisoners coming out, train them in prison. Give them a skill before they come out. Have a technical skill for them, like carpentry, welding, something they can use before they come out. That's what you need to do when it comes to prison reform on that part. One of the gentlemen said, what do I do when I get out? Well, what did you do before you went in? What kind of skill did you have before you went in? Let's look at that skill you had and see if we can look at that and improve that, what you know how to do, and get you a job. And maybe start your own business. And then find out why you got in that predicament in the first place. That way you'll be able to guide him which way you need to go. And let's get a whole lot of nonprofit organizations out there to help these prisoners that get out. They can reform them, help them get reformed, and get them trained. The government should have to do everything for them. We have a lot of nonprofits that can help out with that. And a lot of people, churches and people like that, would donate to these organizations that would help them do that.
Okay. I'm glad you guys have found some common ground. Ms. Fokszanskyj-Conti, anything else you want to add here?
Yes, well, I think I agree with Mr. Braggs. Let's teach them a trade or give them something to do when they come out. But as far as them coming out, I really don't know that much about it. I would have a hard time trusting. I would have to go on an individual basis. A lot of logical training, a lot of maybe religion background, training for them. And I like the idea of a trade and, give them something to do when they come out. I hear that's very important because they 9 times out of 10 they're right back in and they feel safer back in jail and they're just too crime to go back. So this way they'll have something that they can do and actually earn some money.
Thank you. And one question that we've now gotten from several voters concerns affordable housing in LD29 specifically. Many voters have pointed to a lack of affordable housing or housing that's within their income level. Obviously, this is a lower income district compared to some others. I imagine there's a lot of people who are struggling out there right now, especially during the virus. Many times affordable housing is handled on the municipal level, but there are some things that the state can do to incentivize affordable housing development. Housing Trust Fund, for example. What is the role of the legislature? How can you guys, once you're elected, help constituents in LD29 find affordable places to live, beginning with Mr. Andrade?
Thank you, Arren, because that is a big concern and everything. And today we're seeing seniors who are losing their homes. They have been in these homes for many years and everything, and now they're losing them, which goes back to making an investment to the Housing Trust Fund, which you mentioned earlier, assistance for seniors and homeless youth. And during the COVID-19 related, $5 million was put into the rental assistance fund. We all know that's still not enough. But we also have to look at the underlying problem. Investors are driving affordable housing out of reach for many working families. Owner-occupied housing plummeted in favor of more rental properties and with a sense of home ownership. What else is going on is we talk about jobs, about good paying jobs, livable wages, and then you throw in a health issue into the mix and everything, like cancer. How do I know about that? Because my wife is a breast cancer survivor. And one of the hardest things I had to do was call the mortgage company and say, you know what, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make my house payment. And you know what their response was? Well, if you don't make your house payment, we're going to start foreclosure proceedings. We need to put an end to that and start realizing, you know what, while you're going through a crisis, through a health episode, that their house payments are suspended during the treatment phase. Because how many parents have children that are going through cancer? And how many times does a parent have to stay with their child? And how long are those procedures and the treatment for that? That's why we need to suspend mortgage payments and stuff like that. Once again, I'll go back to our district has always lived under a pandemic because of the lack of affordable housing, good paying jobs, affordable quality healthcare, pensions. That kind of thing will drive home ownership back up. We need to start recognizing, because we have seen across, not only in LD29, but across the state. Sedona is an example of that, where too many investors have priced home owners out of their very own cities. And we're watching that happen today. We need to put an end to that. And as a legislature, we need to address that, because home ownership, it goes a long way to say, I have a place. This is my place. The American dream is slipping away because we're not recognizing that we need to do more to put people in affordable housing. Thank you.
Ms. McMillan, I'll go to you now. What are some of your prescriptions for developing more affordable housing and broadening the amount of affordable housing in LD29, helping people find homes, especially now? I think you might be muted.
I am. All right. So
bound to happen at some point.
That's honestly a topic that I feel that I'd have to speak with the community more to see what their personal struggles have been with buying a home, paying their mortgage. I personally am not a homeowner and I haven't went out to buy a home, but I know when it comes to renting, there should be a limit on how high rent can be. You know, some of these apartments, they paint the walls gray, they switch out the floor, and now it's 300, 400 times more than it was, the year before. People go to re-sign their lease, and just because you painted a few walls, the same building in the same place with the same everything surrounding it is now increased because of, the color of the wall has changed. So I definitely support rentals, apartment complexes being more realistic and being held more accountable and in check on how much they can raise their prices too. If someone's been living there 5 years, the next time they go to sign a lease, it shouldn't be a 200, increase. as well as home owning and mortgages. That's definitely something I have to speak with homeowners about more.
I'll go to you, Mr. Castro. Obviously, you're a realtor. I don't know how many of the houses that you sell are at market rate or above market rate. You know, a lot of the development these days is above market rate. How do you plan on fixing these kind of things, bringing some balance into the market so that people who are buying homes at the market price or below market price, if they're perhaps at or slightly above the poverty level, can afford a home, or as Ms. McMillan pointed out, afford a rental that, you know, you could fit a family in instead of just a cramped studio?
Right. So the thing is that investors are not the ones who actually have increased the values of the market. The values of the market are increased because of supply and demand. We have very limited supply and a lot of demand. And the reason the supply is down is because the fact is that when the market crashed, yes, there was investment opportunities that investors purchased homes in trust and funds that will always be rentals from now on. They'll never come back on the market because this is how they drew their money from the stock market back into the real estate market, because it's actually something you can see, touch, and feel. You can drive by and look at it and appreciate it. And that's where they had put their money in. What that did is dry up all the available homes, and the demand has been increased because our economy has increased. Now, when you're looking at what the opportunities are, how do you make affordable housing? You have to work with builders, incentivize builders to create, when they're building subdivisions, because when they're building subdivisions, they're building these subdivisions at 300 to 500 homes for the subdivision. Now, if you incentivize them to make a few of those homes, maybe it's 10% of those homes affordable, based on, you know, maybe it might not have the same quality products that if another buyer went in and said, I'm going to add this and that to the home, and they could actually create the home at a cheaper product rate, but it's the same quality home from the outside, same quality home from the inside. Maybe not the materials are as nice as another home, but it's a home that somebody could have bought at a lower price bracket. And it was incentivized by giving the builder tax incentives or relieving some of the red tape, because they still go through that. You know, they still go through the process of, is there enough water? Is there enough water in the ground to support the subdivisions? Is there enough water to expand out to the West Valley, further out past Buckeye, Tonopah areas? That's the struggles they go through, and they have to go through a lot of red tape in order to expand. So the more that we can build homes and work with home builders and developers to actually incentivize them in ways that we incentivize businesses to come to Arizona, we incentivize them to create homes that are affordable, which will allow people who are in, you know, areas of LD29, Maryville, West Phoenix, Glendale, Litchfield Park, that we can all work together and have them provide homes that they can move from there and maybe move to another area, a newer home, and there's a lot of people moving back to the older homes. I had a lot of people that moved, they had a brand new home and they rather move back to Maryville because they like the brick home. It's all perspective. Yes, there's a lot of homeless out there, and it's not homeless because they don't want to work or they, you know, the mental concerns that are happening in those markets. It's because the rents are up, and it's the same thing. It's supply and demand. You know, there's people out there that can't buy a home because the rent is, you know, for whatever reason it may be, the rents that are out there are a little bit cheaper, but they're almost at the same amount as you could buy a home. And you know what's going to happen in the future is there's a lot of things that are going on that, you know, you can't just de-stress people by not paying mortgages. You just have to be able to have a system in place that helps them walk through so they can understand what are their options of either not paying their mortgage because, you know, they're having some health concerns or things like those. Things happen all the time. The banks are there, not all the time though, but if you have the right professionals helping you, we can help move those things along. And that's what we do today. You know, I've sold over 1,000 homes in my career. I put, out of those homes, it's 2 people or more into a home. And most of those homes were in this district. We're in the West Valley.
I'm going to cut you out there because
Yes.
it's talking.
I'd like to say something on that too.
If you want to lead your resume. Mr. Bragg, you had something to say?
Yes, if you look at also, you have to look at the millennials here. They don't buy houses anymore. They're looking at apartments. Where if you go up and down Central, down off of Adam, places like that, they are building more apartments, if you look, than houses, because it's more money in apartments, because the new generation they don't want to own homes. And the ones who can afford homes, sometimes I say, well, they have Section 8. You can get with HUD and other organizations out there that can help you with those homes until you are able to find a better job or get trained for a better job to move into a home like that. One reason why the homes are up here, because we get a lot of tech companies here, and the tech companies bring jobs where people can pay for those homes. And that's supply and demand. And when they're able to pay for those homes, that makes other people, the elderly people like that, they can't afford them. And sometimes you have to be able to go to an apartment, to a place where you can afford them.
All right, guys, I think I'm going to leave this issue here. We've put in a very respectable and spirited 2 hours on these subjects. I think really good thoughts from all around. I will give you guys an opportunity now to make closing remarks. Whatever you want to say, I'll give you a minute or two to do it. Try to keep it brief, though, so we can all go home. I guess we already are at home, but you know what I mean? And I'll begin, as is tradition, I guess, with Mr. Andrade.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. And yes, I'd like to thank all our first responders and everybody that's been on the front line during this COVID-19. We have a vision. The House Democrats, it's not just I, it's us, it's we, it's ours. And our vision for change: invest in children for a healthy and sustainable future, fight for good jobs, fair pay, workplace rights, protect access to affordable quality healthcare, empower people, not special interests, embrace our diversity, fight for equality, protect air, water, and land for generations to come, build sustainable, innovative infrastructure and affordable housing. I am the chairman on the ADLCC, and that's my other job, to make sure that we gain the majority in the Arizona State Legislature, and both in the House and the Senate, because people need change. They see what's going on in our state every day. When you knock on somebody's house and you see two seniors sitting in a hot house because they can't afford to keep the air on. When you see kids out answering the door because both their parents are working and this is at 6 o'clock in the evening. When you also walk down the street and you see a celebration, but they're celebrating because one of their friends just recently got released from jail and sitting there in their prison garb. That tells me we need a change, and that's what I am. I am a worker like so many, and also an Air Force veteran. I am a union member. I do have to go to work, and I see the struggles that every single person in LD29 goes through every day. We need better paying jobs, livable wages. And at the end of the day, when it comes down to, I also enjoy the many stories, the people that remember me when I knocked on doors, because we do knock on a lot of doors when we're out there. And that's why I'm asking for you to put your trust back in me for my 4th term, because I am going to continue to fight. I do know how to work across the aisle every once in a while. I have been successful in getting legislation through. But at the end of the day, I am a progressive Democrat, and I carry my progressive Democrat values. Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Thank you, Mr. Andrade. Now, Mr. Castro, proceed.
First of all, I'd like to say that I appreciate you having me on here. I am very excited to be a part of this process. I feel that LD29 is the jewel of the valley. I grew up in this area. Every day I've supported my community. I have business offices in this community. I'm all about, I want businesses to increase. I want families to keep their homes. I want people to get back to work with higher paying jobs, better jobs. I want the West Valley to continue to grow. And sometimes, it takes somebody from outside looking in to let people look at and see and understand that, hey, I can do what he does. I like what he says. I can start a business. I started a business at 16 years old. And ever since then, I've been a small business entrepreneur. I've helped families understand what people go through. I've helped them understand, like, husband, you got to work with wife, you got to work with husband. And for you to be successful to buy a home. So at the end of the day, I feel like that I have the biggest grasp and the biggest heart for my community, because I know that I am, from the outside looking in, I am the difference. I am what people need to know, that I can help them be successful in their way and help them grow, educational factors, whether it's business, whether it's getting better jobs. Instead of driving 20 miles, they can drive 5 miles. That's the reality that I want to make happen for us. That's the difference that I want to be for my community. And if you give me an opportunity, reach out anytime, message me. I will be here. I will answer your questions. I'll go one-on-one to see how I can help you. And remember, Teddy Castro, LD29 is who you want to vote for on August 4th. That's our primary. That's what you can make a difference for your community, to have a different voice that has your perspective of what you went through, what I went through, being in those neighborhoods of Maryville, Glendale, West Phoenix, and Litchfield Park. This is what I do. Thank you very much, and I appreciate you all.
Thank you. All right, Representative Chavez, to round out the Democratic field. Closing statements, please.
Thank you very much to the Clean Elections, to each candidate who's participating in this election process. 4 years ago, I made one promise to my constituency, and that was to listen. And a lot of the individuals, what they wanted are jobs. So in the last 4 years that I've been in office, I've been in conversations and have led those conversations to bring over 1,400 jobs to Legislative District 29 or districts around it. Coca-Cola in my first year, through conversations with Mayor Wires and through Swire, we created over 100 jobs in that expansion. White Claw, Red Bull. I was invited to Seattle to visit the Microsoft headquarters so that we can guarantee that those jobs will be in the West Valley, and that the individuals of the West Valley are guaranteed good paying jobs, great benefits, and great education for their children. I was also asked to fight for equality and equity. So what did I do? I led the conversation against the no promo homo repeal, and we were successful. And so what I have delivered are results, and we have a very long way to go, of course, but I know that we will ensure a greater Arizona, a greater economy, a greater education for those of Legislative District 29. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Representative. Now for our Republican candidates, beginning with you, Mr. Bragg. Closing statements, please.
I thank you for the opportunity for me to come to this debate. And I thank you for all the other people here and listen to their ideas. I'm here, if you notice my passion, I'm passionate for what I want to do here. I see things, I hear things from people, what they look at. They tell me that I can't get a hold to my legislator. I don't hear from them. I call the office, but they never return my call. Teachers saying they want to get back to problem solving, critical thinking in school. They don't want to have programs where teaching them about social studies, about kids, a social program about different ideologies. It's all about critical thinking and problem solving. The teachers want to get back to that. Teachers want to get paid for what they do. And that's where you start get enough education under kids so where they can get the big jobs here. We will not be 40-something in the United States. We are in the 40s. Why is that? It's been that way ever since I've been here in 1971. And you've been hearing promises and promises from all these people who've been in office, and they always have an excuse on why I haven't been there. I've seen the budgets that they put out, and I've seen what they've done to it, and I've seen teachers crying because they can't say anything about it. For housing, I look at it this way. You can't afford it? Let's get you trained. If you don't have any education, I'm sorry, move into an apartment until you are able to get a better job. Get trained for it. And also for those people who gave their lives to veterans here, we have a lot of vets here. And they're the backbone here. They're all what they call oath keepers. And they're seeing which way this nation is trying to turn and how this state trying to turn, and they don't like it. They are the silent ones that you guys don't hear from. I hear from all the time. And I promise you, you elect me, the passion that I have in the state, in the legislature branch, in District 29.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now, I will give one more noble attempt at your last name. Again, I'm so sorry. Ms. Fokszanskyj-Conti, please, your closing statements. Thank you.
Well, I would like to thank you for having us on here. and give us a chance to voice. And I like the brainstorming, snowballing, and coming up with new ideas. You see things in a different light. I think that was really good. I have a real heart for the community of LD29 because I live here and I'm involved in here. I want to bring back the American dream, make it happen. I want to put a chicken in every pot. I want a home for the homeless. I think while we're in this COVID-19 stage where it's a learning curve, it's a new normal coming, and we're all learning. And with God's grace and blessings, we will all come out of this better for it. And I want you to vote for Helen Fokszanskyj-Conti, or just remember the name Helen and long last hyphenated name, or you can just think of Helen F15. But vote for me, okay?
Thank you so much. Now, last but not least, Ms. McMillan, your closing statements, please.
Well, I'd like to thank everybody for attending, all the candidates. I'd like to thank everybody for watching. My name is Alysia McMillan, and I'd love a chance to represent District 29. Like I said, I stand with God, and I stand with our constitutional rights first and foremost. Regardless of political affiliation, I am an American, and I'll put the needs of everybody in my community first and foremost, from the children to the seniors, to the business owners, to the incarcerated, and the group of people that play a real special part in my heart are our veterans. I want to reach out to everybody, have anybody reach out to me. You can find my information on the AZSOS site. I'd love to hear from you. You can call me, text me, email me, check out my website, Instagram, Twitter, because although I'm running for you, and I want to represent you. So in order for me to know what I would need to do once I get elected, I would need to hear from my community. So feel free to reach out. I appreciate the time, and thank you.
Great. Thank you guys so much. All right. Well, this concludes our debate. To our candidates, we thank you so much for participating. It was a spirited and at times loud discussion. I always appreciate the energy and the passion. To the voters, we thank all of you who took the time to watch the debate and inform yourselves before the August 4th primary election. The Citizens Clean Elections Commission is your source for nonpartisan voter information. We encourage you to visit azcleanelections.gov for all your voting needs. With that, I'll bid you all good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Hey, good night.
Thank you. Good night.